if you really, really want to be the change that Mahatma Gandhi talked about, listen to the wisdom of the grandmothers, the mothers. They brought you up. They understand what the world needs to be a good place for all of us.
Often we speak of the grandmother energy as being very earth-based, of holding an energetic field that is supporting us, and it is manifesting as well in this new time of grandmothers from indigenous cultures actually coming out of their countries, their communities, and visiting other places in the world, and coming collectively to join with us, with other women, and forming new circles. So particularly in places where those circles may not have existed, they are encouraging us to find those circles, to sit together and connect again from the heart, from the soul, and to find out what needs to happen in these communities and in the world. So they're very much a part of this new energy, the manifestation of this energy that we have been dreaming. This dream has been coming through us and is now manifesting in the form of these travelling grandmothers to our society.
So I think Indigenous people have to think very carefully about what it is that we hold. And we have to think, and this is where I think dialogues with other Indigenous communities, gatherings of Indigenous communities can come together, where we can begin to explore how do we make these decisions? I mean, one Indigenous community can't make it for another Indigenous community, but just to hear how the process of how each Indigenous community is going through deciding what is it that we can offer out to whoever will hear, and what do we keep to ourselves to hold as precious. But at this time, and I think this is the hope, is that Indigenous people who are truly in their ceremony, who are truly in their prayer, they know that we are all related, and that when we are called upon for the services of our ceremonies, we have an obligation to step forward. I think each of us really comes to that obligation, and we have that experience within our own peoples when someone that you maybe don't care for all that much comes forward and it says, listen, I really need your help. Then we drop the stuff, we drop our stuff right then and there, and we say, okay, it's on, what do I do? So we have that experience. We know how to do that within our own communities. If we can find that support within our own communities or from other communities, to be able to then step out into the global community and have that same principle and be able to say, okay, I'm dropping my stuff around this, and what is it that you need, and what is it that we need, and what is it that I can offer?
And there are lots, I'm sure, in every society, it's the older people that aren't quite looked at in the same way that they used to be. And if you did take them more into your hearts and hear what they have to say and learn from the wisdom that comes with age, of knowing things that come with age, of how to respect people, how to work with people in a loving fashion. Every community has those elders, but these days, unfortunately, nobody seems to care for them in the same way, so a lot of it is lost in modern society. I would say take the elders back into your society and listen to what they have to say and care for them, because what they give back to you will be worth its weight in gold.
The responsibility of my generation, of the baby boomers, those of us who grew up in the 60s, who were the first conscious generation, is really tremendous. We've had such incredible lives, we've had such amazing experiences, that we can now give that back. We are the wisdom keepers, whatever that means, however we can do it. And it is our role to pass that wisdom on and to speak in the language that the next generations can relate to. I mean, I still go out to concerts and festivals, as do most of the people I know of my age that I spend time with. We're not the grandmother sitting at home knitting. We are out there at the same parties and the same festivals as our grandchildren, which is great. And I would hope to feel that I and my contemporaries have got a certain amount of wisdom that we can give to others. So I think to sort of become an elder is really just accepting the responsibility of passing on the knowledge and holding the stories.
I have a grandmother, her name's Agnes Kramer, who always practiced our cultural ways. Always, 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 even till she left the world. And that was something that was instilled in us as children, that we have a place of belonging, and we have powerful laws, and we have powerful traditions that keep us strong. So that's the time I grew up in. My mother's time, she grew up in a time of fear. So for many of our people, they lived in fear. And learning our ways, the grandparents didn't want to teach the ways for a while because they thought the children would be taken away and put in jail.
It's also a time where we don't have to hold back quite so much. There is a Kali in every woman, in every man. There is a time for us to speak out and not be afraid of what we might say, not be afraid of our own voices. We can make changes. We can make changes to the world. We don't have to sit in silence and leave it up to somebody else to make the decisions for us. We are responsible for our own bodies. We are responsible for our own hearts, for our work, for our families and for our community. We're not separate to that. And it is time to take some of that fire energy that we all have, that creative, passionate energy that we have in our bodies, and make use of it. And say, no, I will not listen to that. I will not accept this way of thinking. I have my own feelings inside that I want to move, that I want to share with people.
When mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, I think, is the moral of the story. And mama ain't happy, and ain't nobody happy.
What did your grandmother teach you? What did your grandmother teach you about life? Did she tell you to tell the truth? And did she tell you not to steal? And did she tell you that it was good to care for each other and to think about how someone else might feel based on an action that you took? What did your grandmother teach you? And would your grandmother be proud of who you are? Because if your grandmother isn't going to be proud of who you are, then what you're doing is wrong. Make your grandmother proud.
My childhood was very oppressed. Not because my parents oppressed me because they wanted to. It was the culture. The culture. Because growing up in El Salvador, you know, that's where I was born, and that's my country. Up to now, they still don't want to admit that they are indigenous people there, even when they see them. But they're ignored. It's like they don't count. So that's why they say there are no indigenous people, because the others don't count. Only us.
The doctor, they just do the research, and if they found that they've got HIV, they send them to me, and I'm giving them the treatment until 6 months. After 6 months, I send them back to the doctor, and it's only the doctor who will discharge them, because it's the patient that I get from the doctor with that sickness. The plant have got the soul, and the patient have got the soul. So I bring the patient and the plant together. But God knows that this is my medicine, and it helps lots of people. It's like when we were in Johannesburg, they were doing that necklaces fire to the people. They even kill, we will have 2 patients that after they are from us, they kill them. So now we do this work like privately. We see the people, they come to us during the night, and we can't say nothing, but we're working hard. During the night we're working hard, but the people, they don't want us to tell the truth to the people that we have got such a people. Yes, we're working with HIV people during the night.
To my sisters who are living within very difficult situations in the world today, like Afghanistan, like places where they do female genital mutilation by force, places where young kids are sold for sexual exploitation, those kinds of places. Even those children who are in those places, to recognize, speaking, don't be silent. Speak. Speak. Look for a place to say something. Speak. No matter what, no matter where. If you go to your heart space and listen, you will get where you need to speak, and your voice will be heard.
And one of their ceremonies is a wiping of the tears ceremony. And that ceremony is done for a family who's had a loss, a death in the family. And it's where the community comes together and supports this person. And so after a certain period of time, they say it used to be 4 days, but now it's a year, they all come together and they acknowledge with that person one last time that there was a great loss. And they allow that person to grieve. And then all together, they support that person in being able to say, I put it behind me now. I am through with my grieving, and I commit to the future. I commit to the life ahead. And so I look at that model of how to move through grief.
People are coming together in huge communities to share what they feel is right, that they feel passionate about, whether it's politics or whatever it is. They want to have their say in the world, and it's the right time for that. And for some people, that's a little scary to really open up the voice chakra that has been suppressed for many, many years. But there are methods and ways to heal that, and we're getting more and more in touch with that as time goes on.
Well, now the world, whoever the world might be, is coming and saying, how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, now we're supposed to, as Indigenous people, offer up freely our most treasure, our heart, because our relationship with the earth is our heart, you know, and so now it feels like we're being asked to freely offer this information up to I want to say to our perpetrators. I don't know that that's quite correct. And so many Indigenous peoples are saying, I cannot. I will not. In some of the gatherings that I go to, I'm finding that this is some of the attitude. So I say to myself, well, how do we get to that place? How do we come to that place? Because this is our charge. These were the pacts that we made with the earth, I believe. For most Indigenous cultures, at some point, we made a pact to be the keeper and the caretaker. And I think now we have to recognize that while we are part of our own tribal family, we're also part of, we're tribal people and we're global citizen. And that's the reality. How do we conduct ourselves in this?
And my search for that spiritual growth and maturity that enables me to be an awesome human being on this journey, in this time.
I don't think that the divine feminine energy has ever been lost. I think that it's been ignored, and now it will no longer be ignored. Because, of course, yes, you have the qualities of allowing and nurturing and mothering, and you also have the other side of the feminine, which is it will not tolerate abuse any longer.
The grandmothers have sat with the earth. The grandmothers know the tidal forces. The grandmothers know the phases of the moon. They know how the earth speaks through the elements. They're very connected with that, and they are teaching us so much of that through their wisdom and their knowledge. And these are the things that we are listening to. These are the things that we're paying more attention to now, the grandmothers and the grandfathers, the elders of our time that are speaking, that our children really understand. The children that are coming now are really understanding this new way of speaking in community. They have a greater understanding of it without the trappings that we have been living with over the last few generations.
So the earth is our mother, which makes her a feminine entity. Most peoples around the world will agree that she's a feminine entity. She cares for her children, she provides, she has that creativity, she nourishes, and so we call her Mother Earth. So when we look at the treatment of Mother Earth, we look at, many would say at this point that she has been raped, that her organs have been plundered, that her bones have been plundered. So this is, for a human being, this is the archetypal feminine. So when we look at her and we see what's happening to her, I think we can begin to apply that to ourselves as men and women.
I am a Kenyan woman who grew up in a rural setting.
Fucking cunts.
Watching rural women live very difficult lives. But actually, when I grew up and started thinking about what I saw growing up, I saw the resilience of these women. And so education for me opens up this beautiful space for me to understand myself so that I can understand the other, understand the world so that I can work with others to change it so that we can be self-reliant. Now, I went to school and learned the traditional way of looking at the world. For example, with development, that Africa is a developing continent, that Africans are always chaotic. And I looked at my life and it wasn't chaotic.
There are restrictions. You know, that nature does have a greater plan. And isn't that the same thing that's happening to us in relationship to the earth? You know, we keep living our life like the earth will last forever no matter what we do. And of course, the earth will last forever, but we might not. You know, that if we abuse it and we don't give it our heart's energy, we don't respect it, we're going to find that our time is up.
The animal kingdom always has a lot to teach us. And it's very sad how we now treat our animals, the suffering that goes on by our consuming of meat products, the way that animals are treated in captivity. There is a deep, deep pain connected to the earth that comes from these animals that we have forgotten how to really be with. Our greed has taken over some of that, and we have forgotten how to connect with the spirit of the animal. We've forgotten how to really connect with the earth and what she is giving to us from the plant world. The animals that are living today are very much dead before they have died. They are not living a healthy life. We have forgotten the sacredness of the animal kingdom and of the plant kingdom. We pollute it. We have very little respect for it.
It is extremely ironic that at the very point when consciousness is emerging in society, we are also as near as we've ever been to destroying the planet, destroying society, destroying human life, animal life. And my vision truly is for a cooperative world. My vision is that we just learn our lesson in time. We put a full stop on everything and we start living our lives with each other, with the planet, in harmony and in self-awareness, and in a way that creates a future that is going to be accessible and pleasurable for all the children to come that haven't even been born yet.
This is a time now where these things will need to change for us to become more whole in ourselves, to find new values that will affect the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom as well as the human kingdom.
Education is the vaccine that will free women from all that chains them. What I mean is that it opens our eyes to see the blessings we have around us and harness them to enrich our lives and to empower ourselves.
It's very clear that this great awakening is an awakening to the feminine, the importance of regaining a balance between the two principles, the masculine and the feminine. For centuries now, we have allowed a patriarchal, male-dominated system to suppress nature, to suppress women, to suppress the heart. Now we're waking up to the need to liberate the nature in us, and our innate nature is one towards connection. We would never have survived in our whole evolution. We were in groups, we supported one another. We were in cooperative groups. We would never have survived without it. So in order to continue our evolution, in order to regain our true humanity, we're talking about rebuilding the deep interhuman, interbeing relationships. And we require the feminine. We require giving greater support to women.
So we started forming groups of women, sitting together and sharing our challenges and looking at how we can support each other to transform these challenges, which is really the traditional way of living. Was women in the village never had their families alone. When you had your baby, all your age mates came to hold your baby, to celebrate with you. They took care of you for 3 months, where you hardly did anything, while you healed and breastfed your child. Today, those things are not there. But within those spaces of healing, there were a lot of deliberations, discussions, dialogues about who being a mother is, bringing up a child in community. And I see that is where we need to go back to. That is what we've lost. We've forgotten that we are who we are because of the community in which we have grown, because of the other people around us. So I say I am because you are. It's never about me alone. It's about me in partnership, in cooperation with others.
My mothers, my grandmothers would have had more coffee mornings and lunches together and really shared what was going on in their communities. They would have talked about each other quite freely and found other kinds of solutions to the problems that they might have had. And so there is, by listening to them, we can find other ways to support us and find the ways that they did it and look for the wisdom that is within that.
If we can remember the how did we go about coming upon the wisdom of what we are to do? If we still have some of those hows, with some certain ceremonies, it might not be all of it, but we have some way of accessing and making ourselves available to be spoken to by Creator, by creation, by the holy people all around. We still have that. And as long as we have that, everything can be remade or made new.
We may find some real gems, some real gold that we've forgotten about. We have to remember who we are and where we come from and allow those ancestors to support us. And for some of them, they may not be that supportive. They may not have done things that would serve today. But we still find our gratitude for them for giving us this life in the first place, and just say thank you, that was for your time, but not really for mine, and listen to the gold that is useful.
My granny said, we're not elders, we're old people, she used to say, because everyone wanted to promote this word elder. And then she goes, everyone deserves respect, from the youngest to the oldest.
I think our role, or my role, and my generation's role as the seniors, is to really be the bridge builders. So every generation that goes before, and every generation's generation, it's the grandmothers now that must be the ones that take these children and hold their hand and walk them over the bridge.
We need to listen to our children, because they know for sure what's going on. If we could just pay attention to that innocent mind, the innocence, the inner sense of who we really are, the child within us, the child outside of us. There is a return to innocence that is very, very powerful.
My own daughter, she would say to me when she was 15 and 16, she was saying to me, it's basically all over, Mom. And, to hear your child say that, and I would say, well, what do you mean? It's not over. We can do this. We still have a chance. And she would say, no. Science says, and she would spout off all the different reasons why, even if we stop all of the destruction that we're doing right this minute, we'll never be able to turn it around in time. So I realized that my daughter was going through this life really believing that, she had a certain number of days left, which was causing her to live in a certain way. That if you do plan to live a long time, is not particularly healthy. I've worked with young people where they give statistics where most young people don't expect to live beyond the age of 30 at the most. So we ended up going to a global healing conference in Bali, and it was her first time out of the United States. And she had, we got there, it was late. She was late for the youth part of the conference, and they were ready to whisk her off immediately to go join the youth. And later she tells me, Mom, I rode with this really cool guy. And I was like, oh? She's like, yeah, he was just amazing. He was just so cool. And then later we realized that she was riding in her taxi with Desmond Tutu to to this gathering. So yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. And but Desmond Tutu and some other Nobel Peace Prize laureates spoke to this group of young people from all over the world. And when they finished, she was a changed person. She was a totally changed person. So I know that these gatherings of young people can be so transformative for them. They formed a family, a global family. They still keep in touch, and they still talk about what they're doing. And sometimes they travel across the world to support each other. That is very, very nourishing for them. In a newspaper interview with her when she came back to the United States, she's a performance poet, so she gets interviewed sometimes. The headline of her article was a quote from her which said, "Peace is not only possible, it is unstoppable." So that was the transformation for her between total despair and doom. So that to me requires us having the humility to be able to put down the big head, put down the intellect, long enough to really feel in our heart what is it that we have to do right now to assure our children.
The thing that I liked about this model is it reminded us to be connected to our higher mind that always has all the answers.
I have a very difficult time speaking in separation about the guidance coming from the grandmothers and grandfathers as if it's somebody outside of me. I think all of the above, I'm willing to make it all inclusive, and none of the above at the same time. I feel that when we are, our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions are in alignment, then we are like a grounding cord to any information, consciousness, experience that we want to have.
I feel things, and I feel that on an etheric level, on the unseen level, on the tangible seen level, on the real world, and the on the esoteric plane, we're all just coming together as one. There is a fusion of all the different aspects of time and space that is bringing us to the same point. And the help is there if we ask for it. Everything that I do, I ask for help from the divine and from my own higher self, because I know the help is there for us. And I think we as a human race need to ask the divine the direction where we're supposed to go.
This new feminine energy that is forming, that is supporting what we are letting go of, it has more of an energetic flow to it. So it's working in a circular way, in a more spiral way. It's feeding us very differently. It's a time for us to be more expanded in our awareness, to expand the self, to expand the mind, expand the heart, and to be more receptive to what's going on around us, to what we need to receive, to really listen to that.
I think you always have to hold hands with the ancient wisdom and bring it through to the now. And I have a lot of hope for us, us humans that are going to be around, that we can make it a better place.
It's very well known that the church, that Christianity has eliminated the voice of women over the years. Things are changing. There are now women priests. Things are shifting, and there is a new balance forming. But it has happened over the years. Women were burnt at the stake. Men were burnt at the stake for using the feminine arts. The church was not conducive to that energy flow.
We've been all to one side, on the patriarchal side of life, and we've developed enormous technology, but not in balance with our feminine nature, with the earth itself. So for us, the Shekinah, and for me, the grandmothers, as I know them, are here, as the prophecy said, when the grandmothers speak, the earth will heal. This is the Hopi prophecy. Many Native American prophecies say that all of the tribes will once again be run by women. And in the 90s, there was very, very few. And now we have more than 50% in the United States, tribes run again by women. And we're seeing that the focus of these tribal councils is on the nourishment of children and the empowerment of the arts and healing and all of those kinds of things that we know that the mother energy brings. And it must be now, in order to restore ourselves into this garden of this beautiful mother planet. And I do feel from many, many messages that we've received that Earth is the Divine Mother's heart.
In Indigenous peoples' gatherings, I will hear men speak of the role of the feminine for their people. Oftentimes, the underlying principle of everything that they want to share about their culture involves the woman at the base of it, the feminine at the base of it. She birthed us, she holds us, and yet what I'm seeing also at the same time is, where is that reflected in the daily life? It's not. It's not. In one breath, a man can talk about this is their heritage, and in the next breath, or in their next action, I can see that the woman standing beside them is not given that reverence. So I think ultimately it comes back to finding a reverence. A woman finding a reverence for herself. Because I think if we can begin to carry that for ourselves, that's going to help the process.
There were times where the church banned many forms of feminine medicine. This has to change. This is changing. There is a different way of looking at religion now, not so much of a masculine God that is something outside of ourselves, but more of an internal God that is happening within us, that we are now connecting to, which is much more earth-based, much more soulful. The old ways have served many, have served a purpose, but there is a shift happening now that needs to change, where women are more included within the religions of our world.
The challenge will be for the men to recognize that they're being called to step back and step down to their heart space and start. It will have to start with them recognizing the feminine in them, because we have women in the world because they so well understand what forgiveness is. Women forgive easily because our husbands, our children let us down sometimes badly, but you cannot bring up a child and not learn forgiveness, and forgiveness comes from love.
So before going into the mother's womb, you have to be clean so that you can go inside.
We are the ones we are waiting for, and I think I take those words so deeply to heart. At one point, a very young medicine person came into my community, and he was very young, and yet we watched, some of the things that he was able to do and the help he was able to give, and so, he had our ear, and he just kept saying, whatever it is you do, whatever it is you can do it now, do it now, do it now.
We lost the memory of all that. And we think that New Age is one thing and that the wisdom of the elders was different. But no, it's exactly the same. What we've been keeping in oral tradition, in the stones, in all our ceremonial centers or sacred places, is that we are the same.
In our traditions, there's medicine in there. And that's the truth about our traditions. And to go and reconnect back, go into your villages, if that's what you have, or your tribe, and learn about the truth, the medicine in your culture, because there's medicine there. And in our ceremonies, we have a fire in the middle of the floor, and we dance on the earth. We dance on the dirt floor. That reconnects us. Every time we dance, we reconnect and remember that we're spirit. And I encourage young people, wherever they are, if you feel good about who you are, you got a better chance at making it. And everyone in the world has a place of belonging. And you start with your root, and your root place is who you were born into, what country you were born into. So I encourage you to go talk to the older people, or even talk to the younger people, because a lot of the younger generations being born, they remember. So it's not all just in old people, it's in the younger generations coming through too, that they remember all the gifts from the Creator or the ancestors.
The most important thing for the TOT6thS, for our elders, or for us, is that in Temazcal we receive babies. That's the place where one was born. And in that way, we didn't lose our cosmic connection. So where Temazcal was not the place to receive the babies, it began misconceiving all the things until now we have women giving birth horizontally and with anesthesia, no? When you go there, it's to be rebirthed again. And what it means that it takes off everything that's stopping your evolution in each body. Oh, the stones are the one that teach us. Because while they are receiving all these chants, sacred chants, and the medicine and whatever, they began talking. So they are the ones that teach us what the Temazcal is. So the stones represent, how would you say, the stars' semen. Can you imagine fire there in the stars? So when they come down to this dimension, they got heavier, 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 cold. So they
ended as stones.
The Bushman people are the oldest people on this planet. The way they carry themselves in life is without any restriction. They're wide open. We check each other out. What jersey have you got on there? What are your shoes? And through that, we sense whether we are going to like you or not like you. They just merge with you unconditionally. You feel the oneness with them. And that's the difference. We always check each other's boundaries, and they don't. They merge the unity. So they carry that unity. They hold the true, authentic vibration of being on this planet. And we need to get that wholeness from them. And I think that is what they try to show us. But can we hear? Can we see? Are there still eyes to see that? There's so few around still.
And that's what my granny used to always say. Andrea, learn how to listen. Just listen.
They're dying because their culture is dying out. They can't live the way they live. They can't be the way they are. They are so restricted. So it's either adapt to the Western culture or let go.
Being of indigenous blood, mixed blood, I grew up in a mixed blood consciousness, which is both the modern world and the ancient tribal upbringing. And since I wasn't raised in the tribe myself, it's in my heritage, I had to really seek that part of my life out. And I worked with many, many medicine people of the Americas and Australia and New Zealand. So we began to build Grandmother Drum in 1999, after these 3 Mayan grandmothers that I work with visited me in a dream and said that the time was right and to begin to gather the support of the indigenous nations of Alaska. We never took measurements. We never used, scopes or anything to build Grandmother Drum that people, thought about. We found out we built an unbelievable instrument. I had a dream about the inlay of the crystal matrix that's in Grandmother Drum. This is really what makes her a phenomenal healing instrument for the world. I feel like the real importance of ceremony in our life is to allow life to become ceremony, and that, the draw, I think, of the world to indigenous nations and the recent resurgence of our indigenous nations is the resurgence of our roots to the planet. And this is a very, very good thing. Wanting ourselves to be deeply reconnected after a very industrial age that we've been in of disconnection from the mother.
So there are many people that I encounter who feel that they don't have a tribe, that they don't have a culture per se that has its ceremonies. Sometimes they feel led to follow another people's way. Sometimes they are adopted into different tribes. Sometimes they just observe and then go try it out on their own, which creates certain tensions for sure. But I think what I would say to people, and I had a sister say it to me yesterday, she said, the fact is we're all from this earth. We are all from this earth. She is our mother. She has things to teach us. She has different ways of teaching us. And we can all accept that that is the truth. And if we can sit down and listen to her, she will tell us. And ultimately, I think for tribal people, for people who have carried their culture, it all, I think, at some point had to begin in just that way. And that's the joyful part right now, is looking around and seeing who has let go of the shore, who is in the river with me. And when I can do that, when I can be in that space of just looking around, it's a very joyful time right now. Very joyful. It's only the uncertainty. It's only the not knowing. We're very addicted to wanting to know. If we can let go of the not knowing, and for those of us who have been raised with a way of having faith, fan that flame of faith, and just know that the river has its destination, which is also part of that saying, and I can feel it. And I can trust that every day those people will be set before me who will give me courage and strength, or who I am to give courage and strength to. And in that way, we'll continue on and see what Creator has in store for us next.
Peace for me is not just the absence of war. Peace is when people have their basic needs met. Peace is when a woman living with HIV and AIDS knows that they will get ARVs when she needs them. Peace for me is when an orphan knows that when their parents die, they will have a home. Peace for me is when a mother gets access to an income generating something so that she can feed her family and keep her kids in school. So really for me, peace is a holistic phenomena that encapsulates not only the needs of a person, but the systems and institutions that we've set in place to help manage a country and our lives. So I say at International Peace Initiatives, which is the NGO that I work with, peace is not the absence of war. Peace is when people's needs, basic needs, are met.
Now that sustainability is the highest science on the planet, and who are the high scientists of sustainability? It's the indigenous peoples who live in the same places, controlling our populations, controlling our activities in such a way where we can live in the same small, what is now being termed fragile landscapes for thousands of years without destroying it. We have the technology, we have the science for living in right relationship with the earth.
Well, we're warriors of the light, so we have to be full integrity in order to make others that this is real. So you have to honor your word. You have to leave aside all your personal interests, because you have to be fully in what they're asking you to do. So you need to be trained, believe me. It's a lot of discipline, of connection with all nature and with your own strength. So that's why it's important.
We are creating, right now, we are in the process of setting the stage, of setting the tone, of setting how it will be in the next cycle of 500 years. He said, so it's absolutely imperative that we be positive, that we be joyful. And I really take that to heart. And so every day, that's my mantra, is to say, where is the joy? Right now, right now, right now. It's the most powerful power there is. Joy, human joy. I believe that there are entities throughout the universe that completely count on one thing for the well-being of everything, and it comes from the human heart. It comes out of the human heart, and the fact, and we get to be that bearer of that gift without really even trying. It's not something we have to try to do. It's not something that we have to earn. We are that. We are that when we can allow and let it all go. And so when I think about that, it's a very beautiful task that I've been given, and I'm very blessed to have it. Yeah.
I see that the power of the feminine, the power of the sacred feminine, the return to ritual in our lives, the return to the acknowledgement of the importance of the earth on which we walk, the return of spiritual values, the return of a desire for connection, for love, for nurture, for all the things that can turn the planet back into a beautiful garden instead of a ravaged desert. It just burns up in my soul, and it is time now, on every level of society, for the feminine to return to its true place of power.
It's such an honour. I mean, it must have been incredible for you to travel and to go and meet all of these incredible women, and what an honour you've given them by, you know, deciding to do this docu-series, and instead of just having those snippets, you know, 20 seconds here, 15 seconds there in the movie. So obviously you had 70 speakers in the movie, and we got 85 speakers in total. To be able to give them the honour to be able to share this information and these sacred transmissions with you. It's beautiful, beautiful, thank you.
Absolutely, and it's beautiful to be able to go deeper, because to squeeze so many people into such a short amount of time is really difficult. And here people just get to get into their groove and to share their deeper knowledge and wisdom. So yeah, it's been, I love the docuseries. I prefer it to the film almost.
Do you really?
Yes, I really do.
That's very, very nice to hear. So tomorrow we're going to be looking at the grandfathers speak. But what is your take on grandmother wisdom?
The whole holiness of information that is brought in through the heart, the feminine heart, awakens people in such a prolific way. And this is why I have always said the joy of having to be with a feminine near you, the sharing of that, always be open with heart and allow for that learning to come in so that you can embrace that and then implement that into your earth walks.
Wisdom. 24/7 with you here is amazing. Thank you so much, Star. And tomorrow we will be doing the grandfathers speak, which is all the grandfathers' wisdom. So all the gentlemen in the film, and God, there's some amazing stories in there.
There are some very powerful speakers.
Yeah, really, really. That's why.
This, I'd say, is the most extraordinary chapter of the series, actually. I know I love them all, but that is very powerful.
Tomorrow's. Yeah. Well, anyway, they'll go live at 8 o'clock British summertime. You're pretty used to the schedule now, I would imagine. We're getting into our documentary series, so thank you for your time, and also you wanted to say thank you to everybody that's bought so far.
Yeah, I really did. You know, it's been a long journey, and we have had some beautiful investment from people all over the world who have given from their hearts, no contracts signed. That's a phenomenal thing. And when Taya and I hooked up together a couple of years back, we said the one thing that we both want is to be able to repay our investors and more, because they've trusted us. They trusted us to deliver, and finally we have.
And it would be nice to be able to give them those funds back, so then they can give that to someone else to give them the opportunities that you for 11 years and I have helping you for 2 years had.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just about going to the shop and buying something. If you choose to invest into the digital package or the physical package, there's a lot more. You're going to be supporting us to help us give the investors their money back, even though none of them have asked for it back. They never originally asked for it back, but it was just a beautiful thing in the circle of giving and receiving for us to be able to do that. And then also the Heart Fund, and then also we'd like to give 10% back to the contributors and the musicians as well. So it's it always feels a bit awkward doing sales videos on a project like this, but it's that circle of giving and receiving. I feel we've given huge amounts of value, and if you are in a position to help us back, then we would be very, very grateful. So with that, we will say good night, and we will see you tomorrow on Tuesday.